it's up to you guys how you want to do it.
Well, let's get started with the first one anyway, so that because we have quorum for item A, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, then I will do a call to order for the June 14th Conservation Commission meeting. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items?
I have not received any public concerns. I know we have a lot of attendees here today. If you do not have an item on the agenda, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and make your public concern known, though it sounds like most people are here for an item that's already on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, Jay, the only thing I have is that we had sent to Mark Reed, I guess, for the record. We had sent a request for an extension to the order conditions for the Logan excavation project on O'Neill Street. And I just see it under compliance listed. So yep. I don't know if you typically have a separate item for it.
I think it was supposed to be on the agenda, right?
It's on the agenda. I kept it under compliance because you don't have to have like a public hearing for it. Right. So.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. So we'll hit it when we hit it then.
Yeah.
All right. So public hearings, meetings, a public meeting for stormwater application filed by the city of Easthampton for the trail work on Mount Tom. So who's here to speak about that?
I'm here. We have a couple. Yeah, I'm Jeff Bagg. I'm the city planner. Thanks for having me tonight. I am accompanied by Dan Shaw from Dodson and Flinker Associates and Steve D'Ambrosia from GZA. And so I'll just say a couple quick words and then I'll hand it over to Dan and then Steve. So, this is part of our project that has been underway for a couple of years. First, we acquired land off of East Street with Kestrel Land Trust with the purpose of creating a handicapped accessible trail and a parking area. And so, we're close to final design work on that and are here to talk about the stormwater permit, for the parking lot mainly. And just to, request that the Conservation Commission issue that tonight, if possible, or, at next meeting if more information is needed or something. So the plans were transmitted to the commission. We have some plans and information available online for other people on the planning department page, just for the project in general. But, it's a pretty exciting project for the city to kind of match and parallel some of the work that Pascoma Conservation Trust did down the street with, providing accessible opportunities for residents of Easthampton and residents from the region. So, we'll cover a lot of that other stuff through the presentation, but I think if that's okay with the commission and Cassie, I'll ask Dan to, do the initial presentation. And Cassie, if you haven't, maybe you can make Dan co-host so you can share some screen. But Dan, is that a good segue to hand it over to you?
That sounds great.
All right.
Yep, and I made you a co-host, Dan, so you can go right ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dan Shaw, a landscape architect at Dodson and Flinker, and we're seeking a stormwater permit approval for Mount Tom Trailhead Park, like Jeff said. It's a city project on a 12-acre site at 96 East Street. The project includes developing a 4,000 square foot parking area and rain garden on East Street. In this site plan that's on the screen right now, East Street is at the top, and the project area is most of this area that you can see here. So the project includes a 9-car parking area, and that's really what our focus is on with the request for the stormwater permit. The rest of the project is 2,000 linear feet of handicap accessible trail going through existing meadow and forest environments up to a former house site where there's a now demolished house that's been fully removed that the project will restore into a meadow overlook area. So the project will provide a valuable place for people who require mobility assistance to hike and have access to nature, culminating in a scenic overlook. It'll also provide parking access for the adjacent New England Scenic Trail, which is on Mount Tom. The shoulder of Mount Tom is the bottom area of the site plan here, and the New England Trail access point is right adjacent to the project. Currently, people park informally on Underwood Ave, congesting a residential neighborhood, and the parking area for this project will help address that problem. The project's currently at 90% draft construction documents. We're hoping to go out to bid in July with construction in the fall of 2021 and spring 2022 to follow park grant funding deadlines. So the total project construction area will impact 2 acres of grading between the proposed trail footprint and the overlook area at the project high point. 4 acres total if you count meadow restoration areas off of the trail. Because of this, erosion control during construction will be guided by our project SWIP, which GZA has prepared for us. For the City of Easthampton Stormwater Permit, we've submitted application materials following requirements for projects under 1 acre, since the vast majority of the project will be restored natural areas and trails. The parking area and its associated runoff seems to be the type of development the stormwater bylaw is designed to address. Even there, the parking area is under 10,000 square feet and less than 10 parking spaces. So we briefly considered seeking a waiver, but we thought, considering the project as a whole, we'd come before you with the under 1 acre version of the application package. That seemed most reasonable. The 9 acre parking area will be 4,278 square feet of asphalt with a, it's going to be in the site's narrow 50-foot East Street frontage, which despite the spatial constraints of this part of the site, that's really the only reasonable place to locate any parking for this project. And in that area, we were able to fit a rain garden sized to handle the parking lot's water quality volume and recharge volume, with overflow handled by an existing 10-inch culvert that's currently on the site right here that ties into the city's separated storm sewer system on East Street. We had a test pit dug last week to confirm the underlying soil suitability and found sand and no evidence of groundwater at full depth. The rest of the project area uphill of the parking area is, again, a trail with low impact development, drainage techniques, check dams, infiltration trenches, swales that are designed to spread stormwater that crosses the trail out across the existing meadows and forests to maintain existing drainage patterns that are currently on the site and not to convey new concentrations of flow downhill. So that's a quick overview of the project. Unless Steve D'Ambrosio, our civil, has anything to add, we could take any questions.
Hi, Steve D'Ambrosio, GZA. Dan, I think you did a great job with the description. I really have nothing more to add. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission has on the design.
I just want to note that there's no jurisdictional areas for the Wetlands Protection Act on this property. The commission is reviewing it because it does not need to go before the planning board. So under the stormwater ordinance, it came to us. It seemed most applicable to come to us. So it's really just the question of the stormwater permit is being reviewed today.
Are there any questions from commission members?
I guess I just have a couple. So can you just like go over briefly how the site meets the different stormwater performance standards in terms of, you know, runoff control and all those sorts of things?
Yeah, sure. So the site as a whole, currently, the existing condition is meadow in this area, forest in this area, and another meadow down here. And the demolished house that's here, which is kind of a rough, like paved, there's a driveway that extends up here and like an old crumbling asphalt place that used to be the parking area. So we're removing all of that and regrading the top of the site into a meadow where the trail culminates. And then the rest of the site, what we're adding is the trail traversing the grade. And we're using swales on the uphill side of the trail throughout to keep the trail from washing out. And then because those swales are intercepting stormwater flows, periodically along the way, we have, let me go to a detailed plan that shows it better. We have check dams and culverts that cross underneath the trail. I'll show you a typical example of that for the upper trail. Where the trail crosses through. So we have a swale on the uphill side, and then a sump, a stone-lined, dry-laid stone sump with a PVC culvert crossing under the trail, exiting at a stone-lined outfall that will be shaped on contour to act as a level spreader. And then downhill of those, in the steeper parts of the forested part of the site, we're installing biodegradable compost stocks that'll be seeded upon completion of construction and remain as permanent berms to, again, level spread the water further and drain it back out across the woods, which is what it currently does today. And then, so that happens here, at several places throughout the trail. There's one place where there's a long stretch of trail where at the end of the swale, there's a stone level spreader, again, just to distribute the water back out towards the places of the site where it does drain currently. And then the lower portion of the trail system, which is a meadow, which is on the page up here, I'm going to go to. Conditions are a little different. It's a little flatter and it's an open grassy area. So for the meadow portion of the trail, where the uphill swale by the trail crosses under, at the outfall of the culvert, we're installing geotextile wrapped drain rock filled infiltration trenches that act on the same principle, spreading out water from those culverts and giving an opportunity to leak on contour out into the meadow. And we have those features in 3 places along the trail here, just again to counteract the trail and its swales effect of intercepting water. And then for stormwater in the lowest part of the trail that approaches the parking area, again, there's stone check dams using modified rock fill and 1.5-inch drain rock mixed together, just to rough up the surface of the swale, slow the water down, give it a chance to infiltrate. Soils throughout the site are sandy, so we think that this is going to work well. And there's a couple low points that we're placing along the trailhead just to give water one final chance to settle down, stay in place, and infiltrate before any of it crosses the parking lot into the rain garden.
Okay. And I guess while we're talking about maybe the upper trail, what kind of construction period erosion sediment control measures will be implemented?
During construction, here I can go to the details page. We're planning on perimeter sediment controls, using compost socks, straw wattles, silt fences along the perimeter. We're emphasizing in the SWIP and in our specs use of biodegradable compost socks, specifically not using plastic mesh socks or wattles. And then, of course, using typical details, for the larger graded areas where there will be exposed soil, parameters for spacing of straw wattles on contour. And then it'll be up to the contractor to be to deploy these sediment control measures as needed, as weather conditions and project conditions require.
Okay. And then in those, it looks like some fairly large, like cut slopes in some areas. What will be done for stabilization of those and seeding and that kind of thing?
So all of the cut slopes, anything that we're affecting is going to be seeded with various meadow and slope stabilization seed mixes. Our basis of design product is New England wetland plants seed mixes that we've used on a lot of other projects. So in the open sunny areas, we're using the native wildflower seed mix. And then in the woods, the cut slopes will be the semi-shade mix. That's a mix of native grasses and forbs that's designed to establish quickly to stabilize the slope. And in the meantime, the sediment control measures I was sharing a moment ago will apply. And then we have a detail too for slope stabilization planting, where slopes over a certain grade will have to have a biodegradable jute netting placed over them during establishment until the grass takes over. I have that detail at the end. So anything steeper than all bare soil has to have the sediment control details that I showed a moment ago, and then slopes that are steeper than 1 to 3 will have jute netting.
Okay. And then in terms of stormwater calculations and whatever goes into that municipal separate storm sewer system, how do peak and current flows compare at that design point there?
So I'll jump in at this point. We're able to meet the 2-year storm. So there's not a ton of flow that's heading to that corner of the property. I think in the 100-year storm, we're looking at 1.7 CFS in the existing condition and 2.6 in the proposed. In the 2-year, it's like 0.1 CFS, and we're able to match that. But as we get into the more intense but less frequent storms, there are small increases in the peak flow. But it's not clear in the town's regulations what design storm we're required to design to. We felt in this instance, designing the rain garden to treat the stormwater quality, which is a ½ inch over the parking lot, and also to provide the recharge. When the soil's on site here, the surface hydrologic soil group that we used was group B, and we meet that volume as well. So we're able to recharge the water, we're able to treat for the water quality storm, and we meet up to the 2-year storm for peak flows.
Okay. And so I guess for the benefit of everyone listening, the project being not a Wetland Protection Act jurisdictional project, and also not being like a larger disturbance type stormwater project, has a drastically reduced set of stormwater standards and requirements. It's really below what EPA required the city to meet on ordinance we developed. So is there adequate capacity in the stormwater system there to deal with the flows that would be heading in its direction?
Yeah, this is Jeff. So we did have a conversation with Dan Murphy, and Dan, consulted with people at the DPW who are more familiar with that area. And, he said anecdotally that there have been no issues or complaints with the capacity in that area for East Street. So I think that's, without doing an in-depth survey of the actual, the hard infrastructure system, the city engineer seemed like it was suitable to accept that overflow.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from commission members? Are there any questions from the public?
I haven't received any written requests. There's a lot of people here. My guess is that they're for other items, but if anyone here has a comment, you can unmute yourself and make it now.
Does someone want to make a motion to issue a stormwater permit?
So, and just like thinking back to other things, like sometimes stormwater permits will have a bonding requirement, but this is a city project, and so like there will be, could you just go over like what kind of guarantees there will be in the construction contract about bonding, and if the contractor were to walk away from the project?
Yeah, I can speak to that briefly. I consulted with our procurement officer, with Michael Owens here in the city, and what he explained was that our city's contract that we furnish to contractor, like the city side of it, when we issue, the project to a contractor, we have a 50% bond requirement. So 50% of the cost of the project is covered. He said that we do have options to go up above 50%, but I think it's a case-by-case basis depending on the nature of the project and, potentially, presumably the risk. So I think what would be sort of really honest is that we are expecting to get a 50% bond for 50% of the construction costs from the contractor. It's something that we feel is reasonable. We have multiple layers of oversight here, which is we're operating under the park program. So the park grant, if our contractor walks away, we will have some pretty significant issues just dealing with the park department, the parks program. I guess in a worst case scenario, we would utilize the CPA funds, which are matching, to bring the project to a point where it could be at least stalled until we can come up with another plan. So I don't know if that answers your question, Dan. I mean, it's something where we do have that ability to hold 50% of the value of the project. And I think we'll know pretty early, how our contractor is and the way that it should function once we get in there and start the project. And so we think that that's suitable.
Okay. And actually, I probably should have asked before, what kind of construction oversight will there be for the project?
Right. So I'll probably ask for a little bit of help from Dan on this, but generally the structure is going to be, once the stormwater permit is issued, we are going to utilize Cassie's help as a conservation agent, myself and Diane Rossini, who's the staff engineer. So, we haven't ironed out all the details, but what we would expect is myself to be the receiver of all information change orders. And then, Diane would be available to inspect the site at least once a week and review any, large change orders that would be significant for the project. We've kind of had this model for other projects and it seems to work reasonably well. The dredging project at Nashwauk Pond is a good example of kind of us, for smaller projects. This is not an extremely large construction project. So we feel like the 3 city staff members with, Dodson and Flinker available for other issues that may arise in terms of project design. So that's generally our plan of approach for construction oversight. And then the contractor, Dan, and this is where I guess you should jump in, but with the SWIP, the contractor will be managing and monitoring that. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, the contractor's responsibility.
Okay. So I'm actually not sure if we've done one of these like small like stormwater permits before, but So I guess I'll take a stab at making a motion, and then if we have anything that we need to correct, we can talk about it like at the next meeting under, project updates or whatever. But I think what I would do is to make a motion to issue a stormwater permit for the Mount Tom Trailhead project, and just add in, if we can add in conditions, we'd add in conditions about giving the commission like 48 hours notice before construction is to begin, the opportunity to work with the erosion and sediment controls, and then to have the contractor provide the commission with copies of stormwater submittals submitted as part of the NIFTY's stormwater program.
I know what we did we did the animal hospital on 410 Main Street, if you remember that. That was another one recently that didn't have any jurisdictional areas in it, and it was just a stormwater permit. What we did for that one, we have the standard boilerplate conditions, but then we also did, we put all the stormwater, the related stormwater general conditions from an order of conditions. We had them just transfer over for the stormwater permit as well, just because there's a lot of good stuff in there. And then basically everything you described is part of the boilerplate, milestone intervals, coming to check in with us and having me come out, do a site visit during construction. This one essentially will probably be the rain garden primarily for that. And then monitoring and things like that. I can pull up a copy of a boilerplate one if you like, but it's up to you guys if you want to review it further.
Yeah, so I think that project was like one of the larger size, in excess of 1 acre type projects. And I guess I'd rather not overcomplicate the small ones.
Okay.
But we could, could we resolve that offline after the meeting? Could we take a look at that perhaps and see if we want to add more things in, or or
I just have one question. This is Jeff again. So I appreciate the thinking on it as the small permit. I think that's great and appreciate it because it's, it really is kind of a small project. What would be helpful in looking at conditions is we're on a tight budget. So we haven't met a CPA member here. We have CPA money with the park grant. So we have a limited budget. And what would be useful is so I think the 48-hour notice is totally reasonable, and we've already talked about that, anticipated that. Copies of submittals that are already being done for the SWIP and things that parallel the SWIP would be totally feasible for us to accomplish with our contractor. I mean, that's going to be built into their scope. What I would want to just be paying attention to is things that might go above and beyond what the contractor needs to do for the SWIP. That's where we want to just be mindful of what that would entail and how we would keep those conditions, valid. So,
yep.
I don't know how to work out the conditions offline. I just want to be cognizant of the things that depart from the SWIP, because the SWIP's manageable for us. The SWIP will be part of the, the bid proposal that goes out. It'll be any extra elements beyond that we want to just be careful for what the contractor might have to do to meet those.
Yep.
Yeah, some of the conditions. Some of the conditions that are on here are things like for the certificate of completion from the conservation, the applicant shall request a certificate of completion from the commission upon the completion of all work, including the submission of as-built drawings. I don't know if that is appropriate here or not. Also, there's monitoring that should be happening after certain rain events. It's saying, in rain event, precipitation events exceeding 0.25 inches, someone should be going out there, but I don't think a report is required to be submitted. Also, there should be a stormwater compliance monitor for the project. It sounds like that might be Diane potentially, or someone else at the contractor, if they already have to do that for the SWIP.
Yeah, I guess I guess I'm trying to think. I guess I think either we could issue something with a like limited set of conditions now, or come up with like a set of draft conditions to ratify at the next meeting potentially? I don't know if that complicates things a little bit too much. I don't, to be honest, I don't remember if this like category permits gets filed with the registry of deeds or not, and that kind of thing. And if it does,
that is a condition here that it wants to be filed with the registry of deeds.
Yep. Yeah. It would take going through the stormwater permit a little bit to look at those sorts of things. I'm assuming that you'd have to do a record drawing or as-built drawing for the park grant.
Those are all good questions. I mean, I would, if it's okay to ask Dan Shaw a question, but, you know, I think understanding that the commission is okay with the designs and the project in general, you know, Dan, if the commission, if we went to the next meeting and then at the commission's next meeting had the actual order with the conditions, I mean, does that affect our timeline with one of the key things was to know whether it's acceptable or not. And so I think we've gotten to the acceptable part, which is fantastic. And then it might be really desirable for us to be able to see the next draft of the permit with conditions, just so we can understand what additional requirements might get added. Dan, do you have another way to approach that at all?
I think we could accommodate that because I think from what it sounds like, any conditions that we would hear about at the next Conservation Commission meeting, I think we would incorporate them into the project specifications, if anything, and without having to revise the drawings. At least that's the assumption I'm kind of forming from listening in here. And I think we could accommodate that and still wrap everything up. What date is the next meeting? It would be 2 weeks.
So June 28th.
So that would be, yeah, we're trying to, on paper, wrap up design by June 30th, end of the month. So that would give us time to just, you know, tack on a few things to the bid package, basically.
Okay.
So I think we can accommodate that.
And I think that's great. If that's okay with the commission, I think that would be desirable because Dan Buttrick, one of your questions about the as-built, I would love to be able to explore that and find out, you know, that might be something that we might want to discuss. Like, I don't know if we're required to produce an as-built plan for the park. And that would be, you know, something that we'd want to talk about if, for example, park doesn't require that. It might be something that's not factored into our current budget, whether there's some other area in between we could maybe meet, especially in terms of where the rain garden is. That seems like that's one of the key features of the project. So I would love a little bit of time to just explore that and maybe have the chance at the next meeting to talk it through the final conditions.
Mm-hmm. All right, so can I get a motion to continue to the June 28th meeting?
I'll withdraw my previous motion and move to continue to the June 28th meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Commissioner Cody is absent with notice. Commissioner Busa is absent with notice. Commissioner Buttrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan, aye. Commissioner August.
Aye.
And Commissioner Teffer.
Oh, looks like she just stepped away.
Okay, saw her there before, so.
I'll be back soon. I don't know if we have, is that enough votes or?
Yes, that's enough to do it, yeah. We need Amy if Commissioner August recuses herself on the next item, so.
Right.
All right, so the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the next public hearing that was continued from May 24th, we need Amy to be here for that, right? There she is, okay.
Sorry, emergency run out.
That's okay. So Deborah, are you going to recuse yourself for this?
Yes, I have to recuse myself from this 3B and 4A.
3B and 4A.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, so a notice of intent filed by GEI Consultants for a property at 50 Florence Road.
Yes, hi, my name's Brad Saunders. I'm with GEI Consultants.
representing Beacon Solar LLC. This is a project that we've discussed in a couple of other meetings. First, we asked the commission if it would consider an amendment to the existing order of conditions that exists for the solar development that was approved in 2019. The decision was that it could not be amended, that we needed to file a new notice of intent, which is what we did back in May. And just as we were about to have a public hearing, there were some design changes that were suggested, and the applicant adopted those. So we made some revisions based on that design change. Cassie, I don't know, do you put the plans up at all?
I can put them up, but you're a co-host as well. It's whatever you prefer. I don't mind to do it for
Okay.
you if you'd like.
So I can just put up a plan right now?
Yes, I made you a co-host.
Okay, we'll see. How's this? Do people see that?
Not yet. Did you click the green share screen button?
No, I did not.
Yeah, click that, and then it'll let you choose
There we go.
which screen you want to share.
All right, that's what I want. Okay. Let's share that. Get this.
There we go. Yep, I
That's
see it.
working.
Yeah. No, geez, hold on. There we go. All right. So this is the property on Florence Road, 50 Florence Road. The entry is in the exact same spot that it's been proposed for multiple times. We have several stream crossings that are the same locations and design as the original approval that was issued in 2019. None of the existing culverts will be removed or replaced. All of the stream crossings will be using the existing crossings that are out there. The only exception somewhat is in this area right here, which is the very first crossing, where we're concerned about the stability of that culvert to be able to handle the equipment that would be going over it. So for that, we're placing a 12-inch concrete slab over it and essentially spanning that existing culvert. So again, there'll be no disturbance to the existing stream channel and the existing culvert. What we submitted back in May was essentially the same project in terms of it being a 5 megawatt solar array with a tracking array system as opposed to a stationary system, which was what was approved in 2019. The result of going to a tracking system is the orientation of the panels became north-south instead of east-west, which was the original orientation. We also had a number, if you remember the original plan that was submitted, there were a number of breaks, if you will, in the lineup of the solar panels. This particular design makes it much neater and more confined within the site. Going down some of the specifics, we have the same operations plan that was proposed and approved in 2019, the same construction management plan, all of which was resubmitted as part of the notice of intent. We also have essentially the same stormwater management plan, although it was slightly revised based on changes within certain sub drainage basins. We're staying out of the riverfront area, which is up here in the northwest corner. Everything is outside of that, as was proposed before. We're maintaining a minimum 25-foot setback from all wetlands on the property. The equipment pads, the transformers, and battery storage and that kind of equipment is still being proposed as 2 pads one up here for the north array and one down here for the south array. Both of those pads are outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So we took a look at what exactly is being proposed within the buffer zone under this plan. And we have a total acreage in the letter that I submitted last week. Land surface grading, and this is land surface grading alone, is 0.3 acres. And this is of a total of almost 29 acres of buffer zone on the property. Solar panels within the buffer zone is 1.2 acres. And we have plantings for visual screening that were approved down here to screen the panels from the neighborhood in this area right here. And the only other disturbance is mowing of the ground cover to maintain the open area around the panels. That would entail 3.2 acres total. And I want to emphasize that of that 3.2 acres, that includes the previously stated amount of solar panels and the land surface grading areas. So it's not additive. The 3.2 is the maximum disturbance within the buffer zone. And about 3 acres of that, about 1.5 acres of that is just mowing. The rest is the solar panels and the grading that was talked about earlier. And that's pretty much the proposal. So it's very similar to what was reviewed in 2019, except for the alignment of the panels and some changes in the area within the 100-foot buffer zone. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on it that the commission or the public have.
Are there any questions from commission members? Are there any questions from members of the public?
Well, I have some questions. If we can, that maybe would help before we go to the public, which of course we will do. I just wanted to know a couple things. Have you, and this may have been, I know a lot of this potentially could have been reviewed in the original order of conditions hearing, so maybe it might be redundant for some of the commissioners, or for you, Brad. I think it's worth noting just this time around, just in case. Have there been any, it sounds like there's no changes in stormwater or anything like that as a result of this work?
No, there is no, there's no increase in rate of runoff from the site. All of the roadway is pervious, and the solar panel areas themselves are considered pervious areas.
During construction, do they plan to clear the areas for the panels simultaneously for all areas? I guess what I'm asking is, will there be a very large area of simultaneously disturbed soil?
No, there wouldn't, particularly on this site, because so much of it is open already. In fact, it's virtually all open except for a small area of trees right up in here. And that's just, those are a stand of individual trees. It's not a woodland area. So no, I would see this moving along pretty much starting with the north end and moving down to the south. Okay. As you know, Cassie, from being out on the site with me, this area down here is already somewhat disturbed because it's used for growing corn.
Right. I think I was thinking about just exposed soil simultaneously, and if sometimes there other projects, not this one obviously, but other solar projects, that's potentially been a thing where they do the way the construction is sequenced is that they do all the soil clearing and I don't know if they need to, when they do the grading, kind of expose a lot of soil, if they do it all in one go throughout the site, or if they're going to do it kind of piecemeal throughout.
Well, I believe it's going to be the north area and then down to the south area.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
I'm trying to just line my projects up in my head properly. Is this one where we had the fence going one way and then it was like crossing wetland and then we wrapped it around, then you wrapped around the individual arrays instead of that? Is that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So you recall the 2019 discussion.
Yes.
At that time, we had a fence going across this wetland up here.
Yep.
And we made, this was one of the last adjustments that were made. We made it so that the fence goes down along each side of that so that this wetland remains intact.
Got it. So, okay, I got the right project in my mind. Like I'm a super visual. Is there a way you could like show the old drawing and this one like next to each other real quick, just to highlight the areas where there are differences? Like, is that possible? Do we have the approved plan up, or do we like flash between them?
I was doing this earlier, Brad. If it's easier for you, I can pull it up on just
Sure,
the PDF version
sure.
and do it that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second.
What you doing?
So Dan, it sounds like you want to see like the original one from 2019, not the amended one, because there's kind of been 3 versions now.
Well, I guess the most I'd just like to see if we could visually compare this to what the most recent one we
Approved.
what the current approved one is.
Okay, hold on just a second.
While you're working on that, Cassie, so is the installation method or the support method for these solar tracking panels different? And like, what does the installation of those look like?
As I understand, it's very similar, except that you don't have, they're single poles that the individual panels rotate on.
Mm-hmm.
And they rotate obviously east to west. So they're going to go back and forth in that way, as opposed to the racking system, which would have not been single pole. It would have been a series of poles with the rack constructed on top of it, fixed rack. So to be honest with you, I'm not sure whether there's fewer poles in the ground, which are really more like I-beams anyway. They're not poles like a telephone pole.
There's probably fewer poles, but it's probably a bigger pole installation in the center, with a bigger foundation to it.
Yeah, I don't believe there's really a foundation. I think they're driven in.
Just driven in, okay.
Okay, so this is the original plan that was approved in 2019, and you can see that different orientation, no longer north-south. Instead, it's rather east-west. And this is the updated plan. So just kind of going quickly back and forth. I think like major. So over here is a little different, maybe.
Yeah.
And down here in the corner in the southern array.
Yeah.
Can you see that difference, Dan? And then over here as well. That's the old, this is the new.
One of the things in particular that changed, is my cursor still showing?
You can't, but I'll try to like do it based on what you say.
That's okay. In the north array, the driveway access, yes, right where your hand is going around there. That bend is different. In 2019, that was a straight line.
So here it's a straight line.
Okay.
Now this bend.
Still using the same like stream crossing though?
It's exact same location for the stream crossing, which is the existing, it's where the existing driveway is, or access way.
Yep. Yeah. And electricity gets brought back to the road by overhead wires, or
Correct.
and that's going to be like along the same route. Not that.
Exactly. There are some areas where it's underground wire, but going across wetlands and everything, it's all overhead.
And nothing changes with like. I can't quite remember. Is there any like ground improvement underneath the arrays for access, maintenance equipment, or like what's the maintenance to the ground cover like underneath?
There's space between the panels.
Mhm.
It's going to be seeded, and there'll be mowing as needed. We included in the notice of intent the annual and biannual maintenance plan, and things like mowing is on an as-needed basis.
So nothing is changing with that.
Nothing. It's the exact same thing.
Yep. All right, I think that's all my questions.
I have some more if unless some commissioners have anything else.
Let's go for it.
Okay, cool. Hold on a second. So these are some questions that were submitted by Piscoma Conservation Trust that I think it would be good just to go over. One is, has Mass Historic been contacted at all, like in terms of if there's any kind of just archaeological resources in the area?
No, we have not contacted Mass Historic.
I don't know if that's under the purview of the commission to, ask questions about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. One question was, increasing accessibility of the road. Would it be possible to provide separate fencing for northeast and northwest clusters of panels so the road itself is accessible for passive recreation, things like that? Again, I don't know if that's within the purview of the commission to ask. The commissioners maybe can come in on that.
I think you cut out there for a second, Cassie.
Oh, sorry. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Right, good. There's a question of separate fencing being used in the northeast and northwest clusters of panels so that the roadway itself remains accessible. I don't know if that.
It's probably not our purview, but it's private property anyway. So, I mean, if they wanted to close that off, they could close it off, I assume.
Right. It's a driveway.
Okay. A possible, mitigation would be removal of existing waste piles. I don't know if that's a condition the commission could add to any order of conditions that it issues.
But what are the waste piles?
I'm not sure. Is reference in the
tree
comment.
Stuff? Maybe tree parts or?
And let's see.
There are some piles.
Barbara, unmute yourself.
From the farm use.
Yeah, okay. I'm Barbara Walvard. I'm a Lathrop resident, and I very frequently walk our Lathrop walking trail that goes along the north boundary with the property under question. And it has been a matter of concern to us at Lathrop that there is junk piled along that property line. including pallets, old parts of equipment. I've hauled myself, have hauled an old beach umbrella out of there. You know, it's that kind of stuff. There's quite a lot of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can really, make a decision on that because it doesn't really deal with something that we have control over or need to have control over. We deal with the Wetlands Protection Act, so I'm not sure we can make a decision on that.
Well, over on our side of the property, I don't know how many feet or yards in, but not very far, is a vernal pool, registered.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that the specifically if it's not within, there's no buffer zone associated with a vernal pool, and then if it's not within the limit of work, it's not within the commission to.
Right. That's our issues. It's not something we can make as part of our order of conditions.
Okay.
I have another comment from Garrett. And it was written in the chat. It says, in this iteration, the northwest array seems closer to the city-owned tract to the west. The tract contains a stretch of Bassett Brook. There has been considerable disturbance of soils on the property from prior activity. And I don't know if we want to look at the plan again. I don't know, Brad, if you want to share it, or I can if you'd like.
Which one? The current one?
The current, yeah, the most recent.
Okay.
I see Garrett on the list of attendees, so I don't know if he can speak to what the question is.
Well, yeah, okay. I know that we're staying more than 200 feet away from the brook because that's the riverfront area. And this is the closest point up here in the northwest corner where we're coming up to it. The rest of the places where it's at is well away from the access driveway. So, and I don't believe we've come any closer to the boundary over here than the plan from 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mike. Was there a elevation map showing elevation or slope?
There is a topographic map. We have topographic information. It's just not at this size of the whole site. It's the topography is more limited in terms of contours.
Yeah. Can you pull up the contour map?
Yeah, hold on.
I'm just wondering the impact if this is the highest point of the property and the flow of water.
Let's see if I can bring up something here. My screen sharing stopped. Okay.
I mean, that northwest array, is that the highest point?
Is this showing?
Not yet.
No. For some reason I'm not. Here it is. There we go. That's the one I wanted. Bear with me. I'll bring
There
it.
he goes. We'll start now.
All right. So where exactly is the question about the topography?
That northwest corner.
That northwest corner? Okay. I'll get you right up there. All right. So let me see if I can make it bigger for you. Is that too big?
Yeah, no, that's good. So It's at least a 30-foot drop off, right? Going down.
From where? This is a valley in here. So it's down. So you're up at no, I'm sorry, you're right. It's going from 185 to 180 to 170, 165. So yeah, that's up there. It's 25 feet from your 185 contour. Over here, let's see, 175 is up here. That goes down to 170 at this point. This is a ridge right through here. So that 185 contour is coming around like this. So on this side, you're on the other side of that ridge. So is it where specifically are you asking?
Yeah, I was just wondering the impacts as it goes downstream to the wetlands.
Right. So at the closest point up here, you're 25 feet above. It's more like closer to 28 feet to the edge of this wetland down here.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, because I don't know what the scale is at on this image, but it's 200 feet from, you see this line with the two dots? That's the brook. So this line is 200 feet away from that.
Right.
Do you have proposed like erosion controls along the limit of work there?
Yes. Yeah. If you want, I could show you the erosion control map.
Cassie, were there basins or anything? Catch basins or anything?
No, there are no catch basins proposed. Again, we don't have any real impervious surface. You see the SF line there?
Mm-hmm.
That's the silt fence.
Okay.
Erosion control.
Okay, thank you.
So each solar panel just sort of drips directly on the ground right next to it, rather than having a big, like, contiguous runoff of impervious cover. So all the rainfall infiltrates right around where it would have fallen anyway. At least that's how, like, I interpret that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you plan during construction, do you think that there'll be more than 5 acres of like just exposed soil at any point simultaneously?
There could be.
So the reason I asked is I was doing some research, and that was like a concern for other potentially even larger projects that, you know, if there's over
Right.
5 acres simultaneously disturbed, that could be a concern. Like if there was a major rain event, it could be a significant amount of.
Yes, that all depends on obviously the site and what the disturbance is. If you're on a very steep site slope leading down to a wetland, you'd need to be, particularly careful. I think on this particular site, the grading we're talking about doing is a couple of feet in depth. And so it's really like you see this underlying knoll here. It's knocking that knoll down into the adjacent valley to flatten it or make it more consistent across the area. We're not talking about wholesale grading of the site like you would in some other projects, particularly commercial development projects or subdivisions. It's really more of a spot grading situation. If you look at the grading plans, it just shows what I'm talking about. like knocking this down into there. And that's it. We don't have large exposed areas at any place where it's going to be concentrated flow going somewhere.
And so you don't have any, like during construction, like catching basins or anything like that to kind of.
No, we really didn't see a need to do that. That would just be doing more grading than's necessary and exposing more.
And do you think if maybe, I don't know if this is something the commission would be interested in doing, but potentially like a condition, like asking that there could be less than 5 acres of simultaneously just like exposed soil? I don't know if that's reasonable or if it's something that would be too burdensome for the project. It's just something I saw in my research that was noting, that can be those huge big areas of exposed soil can be a concern, but it's not.
They're looking to construct this whole thing in a 3-month period, which is, I guess you could say that's the principal erosion control method, is minimal period of time constructing. And that requires it to move quickly with the grading and then reseeding immediately.
Thank you.
So Garrett had a question that says, why isn't the entirety of Bassett Brook shown on the plans?
Because it's well removed from the property. Let's go back to the. So Bassett Brook is way over here.
So you're showing what's on the property?
Well, to the extent of we're showing what's on the property from a resource area standpoint. So, for instance, in this case, the 200-foot riverfront area is the resource area.
Right.
We do have Bassett Brook identified where it's reasonably nearby, and we're
outside 200 feet from it.
Excuse me. Well, yeah. I mean, we had to stay within the parameters of our site. In this case, Bassett Brook is right here. You see my arrow?
Right.
And then it goes into this wetland. So.
I had another question. Would it be feasible for the plant? I guess my question is, what is the plant mix or seed mix that you're proposing for the reseeding? And then would it be possible to do some kind of maybe pollinator mix? I know UMass Extension has some information on pollinator species potentially being put in that area.
Right. We had a mix that was specified in 2019, which we would go with. But if the commission now would like to have a pollinator mix, I believe, in fact, that may have actually been in the order of conditions from 2019. If it's not, we wouldn't have an objection to have it put in this one.
I have a question about the drip line on the solar panels. So I know these ones will track, as you said, so it doesn't necessarily concentrate the drip line in one spot throughout the day, which sort of disperses that a little bit. Have you done a project like this before and seen any kind of impact in terms of erosion at the base of where that drip line is when you have this many solar panels?
Yeah, I can't speak to that specifically myself, but I do know from DEP's guidance 17-1 that they have found that it doesn't cause a problem if the panels are designed in accordance with the standards that they have in there. And these panels have been designed to those standards.
Okay.
That'll also be, by the way, part of the maintenance that they do in terms of mowing. They'll also be maintaining the ground cover.
Would checking for substantial erosion be part of that?
Exactly. That would not be good for them either.
Hey, Cassie, it's Mike. Did Mark Simpson have any comments on our latest design?
He did, and I can share those actually here in a second. Okay, I'm just gonna share my screen quick. And let's see. So let's see. So the first comment you can see there is talking about current areas following comment is included. Based on aerial photos, it appears that a wetland stream crossing was expanded possibly beyond that allowed as normal maintenance or normal improvement of land in agricultural use. And this is something that had happened in the past. It does appear the resource areas were altered to increase land in production and or to place an additional access road in the area. The commission should review previous filings as well as notes taken during site visits. The comment is related to what the plan shows at location 2A and 2B. The commission might also review the definition of agriculture, 310 CMR 10.04 agriculture. However, the resource areas boundaries are locked in for the life of the ORAD. So because a order of resource area delineation was completed in 2019, I believe, those resource areas are locked in place. So there may have been a violation that occurred in the past. I don't know. But it almost is, there's not really much action the commission can take on that generally because they've now locked in on whatever the existing boundary was in 2019. So if there was a previous violation, I think he just wanted to make note of that, is my interpretation. And then the second, that's something to kind of look out for in the future, I guess, when doing ORADs, just for the commission's knowledge. Then per 310 CMR 10.53, 1, the issuing authority may require erosion and sedimentation controls during construction, a clear limit of work, and the preservation of natural vegetation adjacent to the resource area and or other measures commensurate with the scope and location of the work within the buffer zone to protect the interests of Mass General Law C-130. 40. Where a buffer zone has already been developed, the issuing authority may consider the extent of existing development in its review of subsequent proposed work, and where prior development is extensive. May consider measures such as the restoration of natural vegetation adjacent to the resource area to protect the interests of Mass General Law 131, Section 40. So that part, I think, is talking about, and commissioners can make comments on this as well, but my interpretation of this is talking about how, because there's going to be impacts, we can ask for, you can consider measures such as restoration of natural vegetation adjacent to the resource area. So it's kind of to me, that sounds like the requesting pollinator species be used in the, in the seeding. But there could be more, potential with that if the commissioners are interested.
So could I ask a question as a resident?
Go for it.
Okay. So, Mr. Saunders, I have a couple questions. One is, since you changed what the arrays are, did the fencing change? Is there still room for wildlife to get in and out safely? I believe originally it was up to 8 inches.
Right. Yeah, the fencing detail is the exact same one that was approved in 2019 with the gap in the bottom.
Okay. And my other question was, as Amy had spoke about erosion, when this is all being built, would there be an issue of drainage, flooding coming down into the neighborhoods? Because the area that you're in, there's neighborhoods around the outer area. So because they had pointed out that there is a lower banking, could there be an issue of any kind of flooding if there was a rain event coming down into the housing areas?
Yeah, I don't believe so, particularly in the Maxine Circle area. The area immediately to the west of there is an area that frequently is cleared and planted for corn. So it's frequently open. We really don't, we're going to be they're going to be in and out very quickly with the installation and the seeding. So it'll be, the ground cover will be back just as it is now with the growing of corn or any other crop out there. On the other end, which is further upstream, where we have our initial stream crossing, the one that I talked about with the concrete slab, nothing is being done within that sub-drainage area. That's all remaining as is. The northern array is much further to the west of that and outside of that drainage area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can someone share the drawings again?
Are you taking more questions from public?
We
Yes.
can.
I'll share the plan right now. Also, Dan, hold on a second.
Okay.
But yeah, Doris, if you want to make your comment, you can go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple of specific questions. Holly and Jeff Squire, I don't know if you have anything to add on this. Lathrop has an easement that is an emergency access, and I also believe utility access. Can you, if you put up the overall plan sheet, that would help. Okay, where the roadway comes in there, there's access to what we call the fire lane off Mulberry on the north edge of the subject property. Do you know where that easement is, Mr. Saunders?
No, I do not.
So you weren't aware that there is an easement through there?
No, I'm saying I'm not aware of where it is.
Okay. All right. So there's, it's my understanding that that easement is both for emergency egress and also for utilities. Jeff Squire, are you on?
Yeah, I am here.
Okay. Are there any utilities running in there?
I believe the only thing that may be running through there is a water service. I'd have to double check the plans, but there may be a water line that runs through there to complete the loop through Lathrop.
Right. So the concerns that I have there would be, would your fencing be cause a concern for our requirement for an emergency fire egress? And the second thing would be the proposed precast concrete slab over the existing culvert would that cause any concerns for utilities and any need to work on those utilities in that easement in the future?
Okay, well, first going at the second one first. I know that the slab is sufficient for any utility vehicle or any fire fighting vehicle. We reviewed that at the time back in 2019 with the fire department. As far as the easement is concerned, unfortunately, I don't have that information.
Well, the issue of the easement really isn't something that the Conservation Commission can make a decision on. That may be more of a planning board thing. We're really here to talk about things.
Yeah, I have in my notes 5 acres, but if it's 5,000 square feet.
No, I thought you said 5,000 square feet before.
Okay.
That's what I wrote down.
Okay, no, yeah, I had acres.
So if it's 5 acres, it's 5 acres. And then it was the pollinator mix was something that we talked about putting in the conditions. And I don't know if anyone has anything else that we talked about or were thinking of.
Just the continued monitoring to make sure that erosion isn't an issue along the drip lines.
Okay.
I mean, do we want to look at the conditions in the existing notice of intent? We'll just sort of like go through them real quick and see if anything jumps out at us.
Yeah, that was what I thought might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me pull it up real quick. All right, just gonna share my screen. So these are the general conditions. I'm kind of just gonna zoom ahead, if that's okay with everyone else.
Sure.
So in this one, we had requested an inventory of non-native and or invasive plant species within limits of work. And then submit a non-native invasive plant species monitoring and management plan as a pre-construction requirement that addresses construction period and long-term measures to prevent the spread of non-native invasive plants. Do you want to keep that one?
Can we flag that? Can we see if there's another condition that says that the invasive species shall be managed?
Let's see. No, okay, that was just, yeah. So let's see, that would probably be are you talking about during construction or in perpetuity?
Well, whatever.
What'd you say, sorry?
Whichever.
Okay.
So basically, what do we say are the follow-up actions to do?
So it's at least here, post-construction, it had a, this is a, I'm assuming this meant in perpetuity, but it's not explicitly stated here. Continued monitoring, oh, here we go. Continued monitoring and management of non-natives and invasive species on site to prevent spread of non-native and invasive species within the solar array areas. This condition survives the expiration of the order, continuing condition in perpetuity beyond the certificate of compliance. So they would need to submit a plan for review and approval, and then that management plan would exist and essentially would probably become part of the operations and maintenance.
Yeah. I think maybe we should add a condition that just, says that at the time of granting an order of conditions, invasive species shall have been removed at, within the work areas or whatever.
So are you saying that you like that wording of the in perpetuity part?
Well, I think we should. So right now we basically say develop a plan to remove and control invasive species, and then sort of follow the plan in perpetuity. But I guess I'm thinking we add a step, meaning that when we issue an order of conditions that there not be invasive species within the work area, so that it's not.
Well, before we issue a certificate of compliance, yeah, make sure that there's not any, that the plan is working, essentially?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Installing the erosion controls pre-construction. Let's see. We can modify. Flag the wetlands. Pre-construction meeting. Notify me before you get started. This I've changed to 5 business days since, our boilerplate has been updated since then, and that's a little bit easier for me. Oh, are you missing? This scan, I think, is missing pages. No. Hold on. Let's see if I can find a different scan.
Is the property owner the same as it was in 2019?
The property ownership is the same.
Okay. Well, so this work will, I think there's one area where the property owner has been planting the site, but I think that's an area where an array is proposed. Is that correct? Or is it not correct? I guess I'm wondering if the property owner will have other activities on the site.
Likely. The solar, Beacon Solar is leasing the land specifically that's going to be used for the solar development. The rest of the land will remain in the property owner's control.
So you said that it would be likely that there would be other activities, or is unlikely?
No, I'm saying it's likely that there could be other activity by the property owner. It's a large piece of property.
So there's one area, I guess, that's been planted. You mentioned, but I think that's an area where there's an array proposed, and maybe there's some other areas that are paved.
Yeah, the entire southern array area is currently used for raising corn and other crops. So it's annually turned over.
Yeah. But that's an area where there will be that southern array.
I didn't hear that, sorry.
That area that is now turned over and planted, that is where the southern array will be located?
Correct.
Okay. I guess I'm not clear on if the property owner decides. I guess I'm not familiar enough with the site to know if there are areas that are currently open that will be left without solar arrays on them. But I guess I'm wondering if the property owner decided, I guess I'm not clear on if the property owner decided to undertake other agricultural activities in those areas, if they could, based on the current status of the site.
If they were going to change, have new agricultural areas on the site that aren't existing agricultural areas, they'd have to come for an order.
Yeah. Even if there were areas that are now hayed and they wanted to plant them, they would need to come.
That I don't think so. I think as long as it's being used for some kind of agricultural use, or has been within the last 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, then they can continue to use it for agriculture as long as it's within that 5-year window of the last agricultural use. And I don't think it matters what type of agricultural use it is.
What other conditions are there in there?
So this scan doesn't have all of them, so I'm going to grab the physical document here in a second. We'll just go through these ones now.
Yeah.
Trying to think of big pre-construction requirements. This isn't on here, but in the past, part of our boilerplate has been, weekly monitoring of the site during the period of disturbance, when there's ground disturbance. So, and then you can come to the commission for a request to suspend reporting if you feel like the site is sufficiently stable, and stop the reporting once the commission, gives you the approval to do that. Does that sound like the commission's still good with that monitoring schedule? Is that appropriate in this instance?
I'm okay with it.
I think so. I'd be surprised if we didn't have that in here before, but.
You probably did. Like I said, this is an incomplete scan.
Right, maybe on a different page, because that would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just with the time frame. Start doing that.
Another thing is establishing markers of the wetlands or the buffer zones or things like that. I don't know if that's appropriate in this instance, if that was part of the original conditions. I can pull the file right now.
Kathy and the commission, do we have to vote on this tonight, or we can take a look at the documents for next meeting? Is the rest of the commission comfortable with what's presented here?
Well, we've had some concerns come up, but I'm It seems like we've addressed like invasive species and the conditions, and it doesn't seem like it's changing all that much. And some of the concerns that have come up during the hearing, I don't think are things that we have much control over.
Right.
In my mind.
Okay. I mean, I had questions on the original letter to Melissa, table 1, regarding the 426 plan and this new revised plan. I had questions on the markers underneath 1, 2, and 3, what that meant. But
What those meant?
What you were calling out there?
I just wanted to, particularly on items 1 and 2, I wanted to point out that it's not additive, because I didn't want to put in, have someone double dipping on the area of proposed disturbance. So if we start with the area of the solar panels, then the area of disturbance to the buffer zone is 1.2 acres. And that includes any grading that would be underneath those panels. So the one above it, land surface grading, is just land surface grading without the solar panels in there. So I just didn't want the idea of it's being additive. It's total. I don't know does that make sense to you? Because you also have area of mowing of the ground cover, which is going to also be in the area that has the solar panels. So 1.2 acres of that 3.2 is already covered once under the solar panels. So you don't add 1.2 plus 3.2 plus 0.4 plus 1 plus 0.3.
Okay. And 2, when you talk about alteration, what are we talking about exactly for 1 and 2? When you talk about regrading and it's solar panels?
Right. Solar panels are the physical panel, of course. Mm-hmm. And so we have 1.2 acres of the buffer zone that will have solar panels in them. Beneath some of that area will be some regrading as part of the construction. The stuff listed as land surface regrading is where we've got some grading going on, but there won't be any solar panels in those areas.
Are you altering height of land?
Yes, that's the regrading.
Is that reflected in the documentation?
Yes.
And how much are you raising, lowering property?
On the order of a couple of feet in individual locations where we're grading down a knoll area and placing that in the depression between the knolls. But it's very localized and it's in the plans, and the cuts and the fills are in color and the quantities are included in the plans.
Okay.
But it's very localized, very spot changing.
And that's reflected in the plans where?
This set of within the plan set is grading and drainage plans. Those have the specifics of the grading.
There was those red and green sheets we were looking at earlier.
Green sheets.
Well, the color of the cutting and the filling is indicated in color on the sheets.
Okay. All right.
Just share the screen again.
Yeah, that might be helpful. I can't get to it very quickly. I'm jumping around.
See the greens and the reds?
Mm-hmm.
Those indicate the areas of grading activity. So for instance, we go down here. This is in the order of a couple of feet because it's in the middle of the cornfield. And then on each sheet we have, up in here, we have the quantities.
Okay.
See that little table? Those quantities are on each sheet, and specific to that sheet. So that the quantity on this sheet is different than the last one.
Okay, thank you.
So in terms of conditions, it sounds like the only other one that I was curious about was setting up these permanent monuments at no greater than 25-foot intervals along that are clearly visible and demarcate the 25-foot no disturbance setback from the wetlands and at each of the 6 culverted crossings that are clearly labeled as such to the satisfaction of the commission. Do we still want to have that? Is that changing in any way? Does it still sound reasonable?
If we had it before, we should do it again.
Cool.
Yeah, we don't have any objection to that.
Okay. So it sounds like, yeah, keep the original order of conditions, and then we're adding in no more than 5 acres simultaneously disturbed soil.
Can I speak to that first, please?
Yes.
That may be very problematic on the whole site-wide basis. I'm wondering if we can limit that to work within the 100-foot buffer zone as no more than 5 acres within the 100-foot buffer zone or contiguous acres within that zone, because it's out here in the southern array. Holding that to 5 acres at a time is going to completely mess up any ability to construct that thing in a timely manner. And that again is an open cornfield.
I see. Right, that's a good point. Yeah, I wonder if contiguous.
You still have silt fence all the way around everything you're doing, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's up to the commission. I think that's a good point, Brad, about particularly the area that's already being used as it's tilled annually. And
I don't want to add any more time to the construction than needed. That's the worst thing you can do. In terms,
we're just trying to protect resource areas, so we're just trying to do.
I understand
what we're trying to do, but.
And I also I think that the intent would be that. Yeah, like if there's 3 acres down in this array and 2 acres up at the top array, simultaneous. That doesn't seem like.
Right.
I think it's more like
non-contiguous.
Yeah, yeah. Does that make sense?
Could we say no more? Could we say no more than 5 contiguous acres exposed?
I'm okay with that.
The only issue is down here in the southern array.
You think that's more than 5 acres?
Which is more than 5 acres.
Okay. So you think that the cut and fill adds up to more than 5 acres?
That's just my guess, but I believe so, yes. It's almost like not have that apply to the southern array because, again, it's currently open land. And maybe have it 5 contiguous acres at a time on the northern array. That could probably be something that wouldn't expose the soils for too long. Again, my primary concern with having this kind of condition is it prolongs the construction, which prolongs the risk of erosion. Which, and that's why I'm saying that's where my concern. My concern is the same one as yours in terms of protecting the wetlands.
Well, if we have silt fence around everything, do we just want to drop the whole 5-acre thing? Because you're going to do the whole north array at one time. And if it's less than 5 acres, you're still going to do it all at once. It's the south one that's the issue.
I would certainly prefer.
Yeah, I mean, so the point is to not have like long, open slopes exposed, pointed at a wetland someplace. So, yeah, and the southern array is fairly, the southern array area is fairly flat. And
it's the planted area anyways. It's probably, it's tilled probably every year.
It is.
yeah, I guess I think we dropped that and fall back on, you know, the stormwater monitoring compliance conditions that we would otherwise have, which if there was a problem with big open area, then additional measures would have to be implemented anyway.
So weekly monitoring of the erosion controls, and then additional monitoring at 0.25 inch rain events, and just go from there.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. I think that was the only thing I had the only other thing. And then the other thing is using the pollinator mix for the seeding. I know that there's like more details available from UMass Extension. I don't know if like we want to have it meet any of those things, but I think.
Well, I know Cypress Creek has a pollinator mix that they use. They do a lot of these with communities where they've decided they'd like to have the pollinator mix. So they have one that they use. And I can, we can certainly provide that to the commission before.
Yeah, so that can be a pre-construction review.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then just adding that a requirement for the certificate of compliance is that the proof that the invasive management plan is essentially working. I'll word it in a better way, obviously. But yeah, confirmation that the invasive management plan is working. And that would be a pre-construction requirement that the invasive management plan is submitted for review and approval. And then its confirmation will be required for the certificate of compliance as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't even know there's other special conditions beyond what was included in the original order to add myself. I don't know if anyone else has anything.
I don't have anything.
All right. So I guess I will make a motion to issue an order of conditions for large-scale solar project at 50 Florence Road with the conditions included in the previous order of conditions, which is Mass DP file number 151304. Adding in a condition related to the invasive species management, wherein invasive species will have been removed prior to the issuance of an oral, prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance. That was right.
In the pollinator mix.
And,
Pollinator mix, yeah.
And using a pollinator mix.
Is there a second? Do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, roll call vote. Commissioner Cody, absent with notice. Commissioner Busa, absent with notice. Commissioner Buttrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Whittemore.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan, aye. Commissioner August abstains, and Commissioner Teffer.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, I'll get in touch with you, Brad, as soon as I can with the updated
Okay.
order
Thank you.
and get it submitted as soon as I can.
All right, Brad, thank you.
I think I'm still on tonight.
Oh, you are? Okay. Oh, yeah.
We have the certificate of compliance.
Yes, we got to close the other one. Okay. All right. Public meeting or public hearing, item C, notice of intent filed by Lathrop Community, who had a long wait tonight.
Should I go ahead?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, hi, my name is Lucy Baruch, and I'm a resident at Lathrop and co-convener of the Trails Working Group of the Residents Land Conservation Committee. And Lathrop's Executive Director, Tom Wright, is unable to attend this evening, but our CFO, Holly Smith-Beauvais, is here, as is Jeff Squire from Berkshire Design Group. Also here are fellow residents Doris Atkinson and Barbara Walbert, who I may turn to for help in answering questions you may have. There have been trails at Lathrop for a long time. We submitted this NOI to improve the existing trails because of our interest in caring for the land. Our goal is to reduce the potential for erosion and to make our trails safer and more accessible to walkers. While we have an interest in each of the improvements specified in our NOI, we are not wedded to any of this, and we will be looking closely at design changes to address some of DEP's concerns. Because Lathrop's meadows have been farmed, brush hogged, and mowed for decades, we did not specifically request permission to continue that practice. I also want to mention that in our NOI and when speaking, we use brush hogging and mowing without differentiating. And we're eager to hear from the commission about how you would advise us to proceed.
Thank you, Lucy. And if I can, I'd like to just add, so administratively, it's a little funky because there's also an existing order of conditions for the invasive management work you may all be familiar with. And so we can't issue an order of conditions for this. You know, it's got a file number, but we'd have to clear out, issue a certificate of compliance for the invasive management order that's existing. And that work is not yet completed. They don't want to do that necessarily. So the question becomes like, okay, could they do that, get a certificate of compliance for the invasive management work and then come for a new order of conditions that would include this trail work potentially? Or, or is there a way to review what they're asking and see, maybe the plan could be changed to an extent that a notice of intent is not required? I don't know if that would still achieve what they want to have done. So that's kind of a question there. And then, as Lucy mentioned, through the DEP comments, a concern was raised about the mowing of the trails themselves, and if that is, a violation, or is it something that shouldn't be occurring? Even though, like she said, it's been happening for quite some time, and there was reference in, in a lot of the past order of conditions that have been issued for this property to those areas being maintained potentially for farming or having an agricultural exemption or staying as fields. So some stuff to figure out. I don't know where the commission wants to start. Maybe it would make sense to start with going over what the crossings that you guys were looking to do and see maybe a review of that, of the trail work that you wanted to do. Maybe we should start there.
Okay, we can happily do that. Cassie, my one question is if there are things, when we last spoke, there was the question of, does, for example, Easthampton have the historic exemption or anything like that for the mowing? So the issues, should we be rethinking the whole thing? And should we be rethinking this as filing for an exemption for this work as a resource improvement or restoration rather than filing for an NOI or an RDA. We're also, as I mentioned, we're interested in doing all of this work, but we're not wedded to any of it. So if it made sense for us to pull back from the riverfront work, which would, again, perhaps take us from not needing to do an NOI. So we're open to whatever makes the most sense. We think we have shared common goals with the Conservation Commission, and we're very proud of the 50 acres of invasive species that we've cleared, removed, where we've done removal on our property. So we're looking to work with you to figure out whatever is the best way. So in terms of the individual crossings, this is my first time at a public hearing. So are you suggesting that you want to just start at, so we have crossings, and then we have places where we just wanted to put sort of boardwalk, bog bridges down, board walk down.
In light of what you just said, maybe it makes more sense to try to go over the, like Mark's comments and see, about the mowing. I don't know if you guys have any historical knowledge about how there's been a lot of order conditions for this property. I'm just curious, if it ever came up before. I scanned all the documents previously. There's an old farm agreement. It's something that I guess we need to figure out. It's hard too, because I think, Melissa has a lot of institutional knowledge, and she unexpectedly, which she gave notice, but she's not here tonight to help with this. And so that can be, it's hard.
Is it something that we should continue to the next meeting just to get Melissa here?
Well,
that would be fine with us. I also just wanted to mention, I don't know if anybody had a chance to take a look at the historic meadows, the document we put together showing the meadows over time and how we really are trying to do just what's been done for decades. And I could happily pull that up if it would be helpful. But if a continuance makes sense, we're happy to do so.
Doris, you have something to add?
Yeah, I think what would be most useful is, rather than focusing on the small specific, is to try to figure out the big picture structural of what needs to happen with the existing notice of intent for the invasives removal, what needs to happen with structurally, how do we get an okey doke to continue keeping our fields open? Because some of the questions that DEP raised puts a big question on our ability to brush hog mow our wet meadows that we have been kept in the same configuration since Lathrop first bought the parcel. So we hadn't focused on that, and DEP focusing on that says, okay, we need to step back and figure out how do we find a regulatory process to continue doing what we've been doing for decades. And we found some nice example case study of going under restoration project for wet meadow that might provide a regulatory avenue that addresses some of DEP's concerns. And then, try between looking at how do we deal with the existing NOI, the existing mowing operations, and what we would like to do for trail improvements, and wrap it into one coherent package. What's the best form for that to take? And then fill in the blanks once we have an agreed understanding of the form.
Are there any natural heritage issues on the property? I don't remember.
No, not on the mapping.
Okay. And the one issue that we have, you would have to close out your current notice of intent to have another notice of intent. Is that right, Cassie? Yeah.
Unless you could add it, do an amended to the existing?
I think the change is too big. You know, if it was a very small change, you could maybe amend it and correct some, you know, clerical error or a date error or something, but to change the project, you'd have to close one out and open a new one, is my understanding.
Okay.
I gotta depend on Cassie to help me.
When you think of large change, we're talking about putting some boards down across some muddy spots on the trail.
Yeah, I think that the change in this instance, or the guidance from DEP when considering an amended order of conditions, is there going to be, based off, compared to the original order and what the impacts are described there, is there an increase? Is there an increase in disturbance? So, you know, even if the crossings are small, it technically would be an increase. And then if we're talking about potentially having to wrap in this kind of mowing and like making that more of like a defined ongoing restoration work, that I think would be significant. Yeah, I think it would potentially be a hard sell to DEP, I think, to just say it's amended, you know, considering that the scope is quite changed compared to the previous just invasive management.
Yeah, I guess the question would be the logistics, if we could just, like, you know, close the current order of conditions and then just wrap everything in one order of conditions, like basically pick up with the invasive management and all that sort of stuff, like where it left off, you know, so that, you know, it could just be like a little administrative procedure like that.
Jeff Squire from the Berkshire Design Group here, just here to support Lathrop's effort. And one question that I had, and you know, it's maybe some further discussion, but one of the options that I had suggested is maybe closing out the existing notice of intent and getting a new order of conditions for an ecological restoration limited project, because under those allowances, it does provide, you know, the ability to manage invasive species. There is some stream crossing abilities. There's the ability to regrade, you know, as long as there's a number of other sort of checklist items that, you know, those things, you know, ensure. But it seems like that may be a way to, you know, allow ongoing maintenance and you know, mowing for habitat restoration and improvements as an ongoing maintenance effort, rather than you know, tied to the notice of intent like it is now.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm not familiar enough with the specific provisions, but maybe that's something that could be considered. I mean, you know, I guess we're really, I think we're suffering from Melissa not being here.
Yeah, I like that idea of the ecological restoration based on how you're describing it, Jeff. And I think maybe I don't know if you want to hold off on withdrawing this NOI now, just for now, and then maybe, yeah, requesting a continuance, but kind of running with that. If the commission think that that's good advice, you know, like, hey, maybe don't withdraw this NOI yet, but in advance of the next meeting, start exploring more that ecological restoration option and see if that is actually something that you could develop a plan that would fit all of your needs, the existing invasive management, and then this new combination of the mowing / field maintenance, and then also these crossings and trail, like kind of bridge type things.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So Lucy,
I think we should hear from the committee. I mean, as I said before, if Melissa has the most knowledge and history of this process, it makes sense to me to continue it and to raise what Jeff is raising today. You know, so to me, it makes good sense to push this off for 2 weeks and see what we come up with. We have, you know, we're interested in getting some guidance and advice, but I think what the frame is makes sense to sort of work that out before we get into some of the specifics.
The only question, I agree on doing a continuance to, you know, seems to make the most sense to figure out a good game plan. The only question that I had for the short-term immediate needs was we have been mowing trails in buffer zone area for ages. Is there any issue with continuing to mow in the buffer zone?
So when we received DEP's letter, the executive director, just out of an abundance of caution, said, let's stop mowing our field, let's not stop mowing our meadows. So right now, we have, you know, groups of residents who regularly walk through our meadows, and we've stopped because it's, you know, tall grass now at this time. So the question is, could the commission consider allowing us to continue to mow in buffer zones so that those who are not able to walk in the wooded areas, some of our 90-plus-year-old residents don't go into the wooded trails, they only walk in the meadows. And so is that something that we could consider doing, mowing in the buffer zones?
I don't think we can give you permission to do something that is against the Wetlands Protection Act, so.
This is activity that's been going on since.
Yeah, Doris, it sounds like we might need to just figure that piece out.
This kind of thing, like, personally drives me crazy in my job, because, like, it's like if you stop the activity that's been done for decades, it's an alteration, right? You know, but I don't want to give you advice that's gonna, like, you know, get you in trouble. So, like, I guess I don't know how to phrase it other than that. Like, if I didn't know it was happening, I couldn't tell you how to. Now that we're on TV, it's a tough thing. I mean, like, I'm a damn safety engineer, and we come across it all the time. We've been doing this forever to do this or that. Like, but you're telling me now that we're submitting a permit application for something, we can't do it anymore until we get that permit.
Well, keeping the fields open was mentioned in the 1996 initial notice of intent. Since we are not doing anything that wasn't allowed in that original notice of intent, can we rely on that for the buffer zone area only?
Was there a certificate of compliance received and all that?
Yeah.
I mean, so, like, my guess is that it was everybody's understanding at that time that the mowing would continue in perpetuity, right? And
yeah,
you know, it was mentioned in that order of conditions. We may not have done, by we I mean, you know, predecessors may not have really done certificates of compliance with conditions in perpetuity, but, like, you know, it's the same with, like, a residential yard or whatever. It's just that the frequency of mowing might be less. You know, how often does it get mowed?
There's two sets of mowing. One is the annual work we do to keep down the invasives, maintain the habitat, keep it open for future use. So annually we brush hog all of our meadows. in addition, during from like May to October, we also mow trails. So
Yeah.
the mowing of the trails is more frequent than the annual brush hogging.
Right. So what she's referring to are trails that are areas of the meadow that are more mowed more often than the rest of the meadow. To have a place that is safe for people to walk.
I get you. I mean, so my personal opinion was that if it was an activity that was understood as like part of the project when it was originally constructed and understood that it would continue and has continued, like it's no different than maintaining a residential yard. It just gets, the purpose is not like for people to run around in and have barbecues. The purpose is to maintain invasive species and, you know, a walking trail.
If it was a residential yard near a wetland and it's been mowed for the past 100 years, then you can still mow it.
Yeah, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
No, it is a residential yard. It's
Yeah.
a residential yard for 100 and how many senior citizens?
Right. So I guess that's what we're kind of saying or trying to say. But again, it's kind of a gray area for me. But you know, I'd like to hear what Melissa has to think about it. But I wouldn't. If you had it in the order of conditions that you're supposed to maintain those things, then you can always hold that up and say, "Here's my order of conditions that said I can do this."
Okay. So I guess.
Should we take a vote? Who says they can keep mowing?
Are there any other projects that any of the commissioners here are aware of in Easthampton where wet meadows are maintained for that are not in active agricultural use, but wet meadows are maintained for that particular type of habitat that we're losing all over the place?
Would a habitat management plan allow that to occur?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of provisions in the ecological restoration provisions. I think a lot of it is just ensuring that it won't impair habitat and some of the other intents of the regulation. But I certainly think that a lot of these, reading through some of these exemptions or projects that would apply, and includes thinning of planting and vegetation, fill removal and regrading. There's a whole host of things in here that I think, among invasive species management,
That seems like a worthwhile pathway to pursue.
Do you want to make that motion?
I'll move to continue to the
It's June 28th.
June 28th, unless there are other items we want to discuss right now. In which case, I'll move to continue to the 28th later.
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Cody is absent with notice. Commissioner Busa is absent with notice. Commissioner Buttrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan, aye. Commissioner August.
Aye.
And Commissioner Teffer.
Aye.
All right, the motion passed, so we're continuing to June 28th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Lathrop was on your agenda for a couple of other things.
Yeah, so the only other thing, the two other things that they're on the agenda for, they've been on the agenda every single time since those items were originally opened. One is the invasive management plan, the existing order of conditions. I don't have any updates to that outside of what we spoke about today. And then the other thing was the conservation restriction associated with the original construction. I don't have any updates for that either. So those two items I did not anticipate discussing.
Okay.
The main item was this. So unless you have anything you want to add, but I know that there's a lot involved with the CR. I didn't anticipate having any discussion about that, unless there's something you'd like to add.
No. So you don't need us, right?
Oh, it's just on our list of compliance updates that we just, if there's nothing to talk about, we skip over it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
All right.
All right. Request for certificates of compliance. So this is just to close out the original order conditions, so we can move forward with the new one.
Yep. No work has been completed. So it would be a certificate of compliance from no work, and did the site visit confirming no work has been completed. And this needs to happen in order for me to actually issue the new order of conditions.
Next one, okay.
Yeah.
So
Are you talking about the Beacon Solar?
Yeah, the existing order of conditions for Beacon Solar, yes.
For Beacon Solar. I wanted to know there was a reason for me to still be here.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yep. Administratively, we can't have two order of conditions out for one property.
That's
great. Yeah.
Actually, administratively, we're in hot water right now.
I know.
We already voted on it, right?
Technically, yeah.
Well, they issued an order. They issued a file number.
They did. But I haven't issued the order of conditions yet, technically, until I send it to DEP. So actually, we're not in hot water.
All right. So how does the motion need to be motioned?
So the commission can vote to issue an order of conditions for, let's see, what's the actual word? Let me pull it up real quick. But to cite the original file number, not using the new file number.
Right. So it's 151304.
Mm-hmm. So we would do a
certificate of compliance for that?
It would be, so in an invalid order of conditions, to issue a certificate of compliance for an invalid order of conditions, hereby certifying that the work regulated by the above referenced order of conditions never commenced. The order of conditions has lapsed and is therefore no longer valid. No future work subject to the regulation of the Weather Protection Act may commence without filing a new notice of intent, which they have done.
Would someone like to make that motion?
So just like for the sake of asking the question, nothing has happened, right?
Nothing at all. Not even the landowner really hasn't done anything.
And I can confirm that from the site visit.
All right. So I will move to issue a certificate of compliance for, and what was that phraseology?
An invalid order of conditions.
For an invalid order of conditions for DEP file number 151304, was it?
Yes. Is there a second?
From remembering all those, like, you know, two-factor authentication passwords I have to do all day long now. I remember a 6-digit number off the top of my head.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so roll call. Commissioner Cody absent with notice. Commissioner Busa absent with notice. Commissioner Buttrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan, aye. Commissioner August.
Abstaining. She recused herself.
Oh, that's right, I forgot. Sorry. And Commissioner Teffer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Could
All right, thanks.
One question about the order of conditions for the new project. Would that be issued at the next meeting? Or is that something that gets signed before then?
Nope. It's been, you're just going to have to wait for me to send you the completed document, and I will,
Okay.
yeah. And I simultaneously send it to DEP so that you don't have to come to the next hearing. That is completed.
Okay, so when might we have this?
Question.
Oh, Dan, you have something?
Do we have to start signing things again after tomorrow?
In theory,
think
that's another
so.
discussion. That's
I think
not
so,
even,
yes.
yeah, potentially, yes. That's a whole other can of worms. But for this one, no. So, yeah, we're good on this one. But technically, I have 21 days to get it to you, Brad.
Correct.
Ideally, it won't take me that long. I can't give you an exact date, unfortunately. I apologize. But
Within
yeah,
the next 2 weeks?
I will definitely try. I can definitely try for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's all. Thank you very much. Bye.
All right, good night, Brad.
I unfortunately have to pop off, but I think I just checked in with Cassie, and I think we are good for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, I think
Still
we're
have
good.
quorum.
Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for stepping in there.
Oh yeah, no worries. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye.
Good night.
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 So when are we going back into the office?
I mean, honestly, we still have other items. I'd like to, if we can wait, hold off on that discussion. I know Mike gets weird and confusing, but we have two other things.
right.
The next one is Logan Properties.
Yeah, just jump to whatever you're want to jump to. And
Yep. So this is for Mark Reed and the Logan Properties. They have requested an extension of the order of conditions. I don't know, Mark, you want to give us like an update on what?
Sure. Sure. Mark Reed from Heritage Land Surveying and Engineering, representing Dave Loven. This is an ongoing project that Mr. Loven has been constructing on O'Neill Street. I know a number of the commission members have been out there. This will be his second extension request, so that we prepared a letter and submitted it to the board with the items that are left to be done. As you know, he is building this facility for his own use. So he's between COVID has gotten slowed down considerably, as well as trying to manage his funds on the project so not to overextend himself in financially. So he's asking for a request for a continuation, 3 years. The items left to be done for the project in itself and is in the cover letter that we sent to you, but the installation of a stormwater treatment unit and the connection of a pipe into the stormwater basin, fine grading of the parking lot, and install the asphalt as approved per the plans, and dress up the areas when he does the paving around the site itself. Install the foundations for the two buildings that are proposed for the site themselves, and actually construct the buildings, and make the connections for the underground utilities that are stubbed down into the site, into the main area, to service the two buildings that are being proposed on the site. The site is, as a number of you have witnessed, is very vegetated between the active construction site and the resource areas, the border vegetated wetlands. The two wetland replication areas are very, very thick with vegetation, wetland vegetation. And we've provided 2 different reports throughout the years on the wetland replacement areas that satisfies that requirement of the order conditions. So we're requesting that the condition that's going to be expiring on in July, the middle of July, be extended for another 3 years under DEP file number 151-287.
And I can confirm that, we received this request well in advance of the 30-day requirement.
All right, can I get a motion to extend the order conditions for 3 years?
I'll motion to extend for 3 years.
Can I get a second?
I can't.
All right, roll call vote. Commissioner Cody, absent with notice. Commissioner Busa, absent with notice. Commissioner Buttrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Ryan, aye. Commissioner August.
Aye.
And Commissioner Teffner, absent with notice.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And
all right, Mark.
Paperwork from you. Cassie, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, thank you. Next up, 108 Oliver Street, order of conditions that was issued previously. They have a request to review the conditions, the special conditions that were included in that order. And I'll turn it over to Terry. He just said some that he doesn't, there's an argument to me that they're not appropriate and would like to be, at least officially on the record, noted that they're not, what word I'm looking for here, applicable. And then the other ones that you had questions about potentially that you wanted to change, but I'll hand it over to you, Terry.
All right, thank you. So Terry Reynolds, T. Reynolds Engineering for Bill Chickion at 108 Oliver Street. So you guys issued an order of conditions, and there were a few things that just were in conflict, for general conditions that you're trying to implement that we're asking to be corrected and struck through. So I sent Cassie an email with the specific items, and I don't know if hopefully you've all maybe looked at them. But I can go through them. But basically, just a few things. Mostly, there are a couple items. The first was just in paragraph 1 of attachment A, the isolated wetland is actually located on the southern edge of the property, not the western edge. So we'd like to just correct that and make that clear that's where that is. In paragraph 2, there's a typo in the buffer zone. So it should be that there is a 824 square foot replication area or of impact area, and then 836 replication. Just a minor detail, but we are replicating more than we're disturbing. And then the following in Appendix B were items that you feel should be struck out. And these are, landscaping. We had talked about trying to keep the reporting and stuff to somewhat of a reasonable amount that is for a single family home that is more manageable. This is not a large impact. It's not subject to a NEPADES permit. So we'd like to strike through, list of landscaping plants to be used. There aren't any that are being proposed on this site other than the replication area. And those are listed. Inventories of non-native and invasives. They're I'm sure some, but that wasn't something we had really discussed in terms of tracking that. SWIP is not applicable to this project. We had not talked about permanent markers for the wetland resource area. So I'd like to see that taken out. And then the construction sequencing plan for phase 1, including stormwater management system, that stuff's not applicable to this. Straw wattle detail, these are kind of boilerplate stuff that I think aren't appropriate. So that was through H. And then number 23, this is, again, comes back to SWIP and somebody doing inspections, ongoing inspections. So this really, again, is not really applicable for this scale project. This is more intended for a commercial project. So we'd like to remove that. And then the next one is 28. And again, this is, again, more reporting and stuff of inspections and so on. So what we had agreed upon in the meeting was that basically the applicant would invite Cassie, the agent, or the commission to come over, inspect at specific intervals when the road comes in, with when the replication's being done, the stream crossing, and at those points. So I think so this is a little bit more than we had really was intended. And then 37, sentence 3, no discharge of water allowed into subject areas. So this entire project is a buffer zone project. So it's kind of impossible not to have some discharge into a jurisdictional area. And then 43, subsequent to seeding, disturbed areas, erosion control netting. Yeah, we're not, it just doesn't apply to this project. We're not putting down netting. And then 53 through 57, again, is stormwater management, which doesn't apply to this project. 61, fertilizers, pesticides. That is addressed in a previous comment in terms of there shall be not only approved fertilizers used. So if we can remove that. And then the last, I believe, is the as-built plan by a registered engineer, land surveyor. Again, this is just a residential project. So that's basically it, and hoping if you guys can agree to that. It was becoming problematic in terms of him recording it, and being a conflict and an impact to the property that a lot of this you can't comply with.
I see. So some of the ones that are either redundant or don't apply, you want those removed because it was like cost preventative to actually, just the physical length of it was cost preventative to get it recorded. And some of the other ones,
Well, yeah, I mean, this, a lot of it was, in the meeting we had talked about not being overly burdensome on them in terms of reporting. The reporting really is intended for larger scale projects that have ongoing potential impacts. This is not one of those. So yeah, and then doing work in jurisdictional areas and buffer zones, is that this is a buffer zone project. All the work is in the buffer zone. So. So if it's agreeable, I mean, that we'd like to just have it on record to strike those items. And then we can record the minutes along with the conditions, and that should address the issues.
I must have not been here for the meeting, or like this project did not ring a bell for me at all. I've been like looking for
that is possible, Dan. It's a single family home that is near the Chicoine farm, and there's a crossing involved, thus a replication area, and then the house itself is all within the buffer zone. So the only wet bordering vegetation impacts was in the crossing, correct, Terry? And then the house itself is all in buffer zone, right?
We had, well, as it said, there were impacts. The crossing itself, that was a stream crossing. So there were impacts coming up to that crossing area. I can show you the plan if you want. I can put that up if you're interested.
Yeah, I was just like kind of trying to describe it briefly to see if it jogged Dan's memory, but it's really possible you weren't there, Dan. I know there was a few meetings that you weren't able to attend back then, I feel like, so.
Yeah, was this like early December or November?
Well, it expires January 5th of 24, so it was probably January when we looked at it or something, or December.
Yeah, it was December.
Was there also a replication area?
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. And you're saying you're doing more replication than what is required?
Yeah, it needs to be 1-to-1, and the way it got recorded, it was showing slightly less. The numbers just got reversed.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I mean, I agree with Terry's assessment, particularly definitely about both those typos from the attachment A. And then the ones that are stormwater related, stormwater does not apply to the single family home. So, they're kind of left in there again, yeah, because it's the boilerplate. And in the past with other projects, it's always just been like, yeah, that's not applicable. But I can understand in Terry's explanation of why they want that said explicitly, in the minutes. Just at least speaking to those two items for sure.
What about the permanent markers?
Yeah, I mean, we've required like single family residences to do permanent markers and also not use invasives and planting plans and things like that before. And I'm pretty sure record drawings or as-built drawings too for survey with compliance closeout. I don't think those are focus. The issue with markers being that they provide documentation for future property owners so that extensive disturbed areas don't expand over time.
I think we're not talking about limits of work markers. We're talking about Cassie, if you can bring it back to that. He does need to put in markers for the limits of work.
Yeah, no, the permanent marker is different than the limit of work. You're correct. In the past, the reason that that's been included in the boilerplate, and I forgive me, I don't remember if this was discussed at the meeting for the original hearing, but the intent, at least, to having it in the boilerplate is so that over time there is an encroachment through mowing or regular lawn maintenance. It's to try to help prevent encroachment within the buffer zone. Beyond what's been approved here today, because technically, if they were going to increase, lawn into some of these areas, they would need a permit for that. But sometimes that can just happen, through regular maintenance of a lawn. It just slowly starts to encroach. So then correct me if I'm wrong, commissioners, if that's not the correct interpretation.
Right. I agree with you.
So, okay, so the issue of contention is markers at wetland boundaries, basically.
Yeah, and maybe, I'm looking at this and that may be an error because I had talked to him about submitting his intended signage for permanent markers at the limits of work.
Would that be, so this says permanent markers of the resource area. Would there be another condition that talks about the limits of work as well?
Yeah, I'm sure that there is in the, let's see, down here, prior to construction.
Yep.
Just split, no, not that. Limits, so the wetland flagging, okay. Wetland flagging, so prior to the pre-construction meeting and any activity site, the limits of works as shown in the final approved plan of record shall be marked, as well as any trees greater than a certain distance that want to be removed for the commission's review. And then the limit of work could potentially be shifted to avoid that removal.
Yeah, okay, so administratively, I don't know how this works, but I guess then it would make sense to get rid of duplicative conditions and, if we're satisfied that marking the limit of work is good, then we could not also have a condition to mark wetland boundaries.
Yeah, I am not, the E may be a mistake because I'm not asking that he not put permanent markers for his limit of work. I'm not sure if it was listed somewhere else in the conditions and that's why this one was struck through.
Not typically, as far as I know. Usually, I think, I'm going to double check to see if it's not
I know I spent a whole bunch of time explaining to him why that permanent marker was, required. So that isn't something that I'm asking be removed from the condition or be acknowledged as being removed. Because this property, as you know, you do want the permanent markers. He likely is going to be there for, till the end of his time. But for future owners, you do want that. So
this is starting to sound familiar. I may just be getting too old.
I can show you the plan if you want me to share it.
Yeah, sure. We don't have anything else to do tonight, do we?
We're waiting this long.
Yeah.
You don't see it? So coming off Oliver Street, we've got the replication area here, coming little stream crossing here. So basically coming across this meadow area is the wetland impact. And then basically so he needs to put markers all along the limit of work on the edges.
The permanent markers, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. In terms of the surveyed as-built drawing, though, like that's something that we kind of like to document compliance with the order of conditions, because that was something you wanted to strike also, right?
Yes.
Yep. Could we rephrase that to?
So that would be, I'm not sure which number that is.
I can pull it up again. That is way at the end there. It's 60 something, I think. 61C. An as-built plan signed and stamped by a registered professional engineer or land surveyor showing post-construction conditions within all areas under the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. This plan shall include, at a minimum, all wetland resource area boundaries with associated buffer zones and regulatory setbacks, areas taken from the final approved plans of record in this order of conditions. 2, locations and elevations of all stormwater management conveyance and structures and best management designs. Obviously, that's not applicable in this instance. Distances from any structures constructed under the order to wetland resource areas. Structures include, but not limited to, all buildings, septic system components, wells, utility lines, fences, retaining walls, and roads/driveways. 4, a line delineating the limit of work. Work includes any filling, excavating, and/or disturbance of soils or vegetation approved under this order. And then 5, wetland resource replication, restoration, or enhancement area, including areas of invasive species management included under this order. So I guess the question from my perspective, is it that the element of it needing to be stamped by a registered professional engineer, is that what's considered potentially burdensome here?
We just felt it was unnecessary. We have a plan.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of this condition is to demonstrate compliance with what was approved.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm inclined to leave it.
Is there any kind of reworking of this potentially, Terry, that you would be amenable to, or that the commission would be amenable to?
I mean, I would envision that exact same plan that you got is what you're going to get back. It's just going to be certified that he built it.
I mean, the question becomes is verifying that things are where they are.
Right.
If they're off a couple of feet some way, or something might look right but not be right.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like accusatory that like we think that the applicant is trying to get away with something, or that they're like anticipating that they will try to build something else. It's just a standard way of proving beyond a doubt for anyone else who reviews this in the future that like it was built the way they said they were going to build it.
Yeah.
But I understand that like that the permittee has every intention of doing that as it stands. It's more for like, yeah, just having proof for anyone who asks.
I mean, until Melissa's here, and for years on, I forget, one of the developments, Button Road or Treehouse or something, every time a property, development of a property was completed, they would come before us for a certificate of compliance, like a partial certificate of compliance for that property, and provide a plan. And I guess I'm not sure right now what level of documentation we asked for at that point, but like we could wait, talk to Melissa, and then see what that level of documentation was, so we weren't like doing anything more stringent in this case, because I think those worked out fine.
So you're
Okay
saying,
with that. Yeah, I'm okay with talking to Melissa about it.
and I can do a little research myself. So you're saying that there's possibly precedent from the treehouse project where there was multiple potential as-built needed, that there was maybe potentially some leniency or rewording that was a little more less burdensome, sounds like.
Yeah.
That could be.
Which project it was, but it was down in your neck of the woods, Michael, I think.
Yeah, check treehouse. I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about not getting rid of 16E.
Yep, I have that noted.
But otherwise, the rest of them seem reasonable.
Yeah, I don't know how the commission wants to do this administratively. Like you can go through and just explicitly say, yeah, like go on the list and say like, oh, geez, you already got those typos. That's I've already made a note of. But like say 16D, they're okay with, striking that. 16C, okay with striking. I don't know if you want to do it that way, or if y'all feel like you've reviewed all these changes sufficiently enough that you just want to say all of them are good to go except for those noted.
I haven't really reviewed it, so I don't really want to say that yet.
Yeah.
So what was the reason that we didn't want to include invasives?
Include which?
Talk
Invasives.
about 16C.
That's just the inventory of the invasives. That wasn't, it would be nice, but that isn't something we discussed going through. That requires somebody going through and actually finding and identifying them all. This is a farm. There's going to be multiflora floating around. There's going to be other things, here, there, and everywhere. In the areas of work, obviously, he's going to take stuff like that out where he can.
So you're saying he will remove the invasives where he can?
I mean, that's in the farming process, but that isn't something we talked about originally, especially in an inventory of them.
Yeah, so generally it's just burdensome, and the question now is like, does the commission, are they amenable to that? Considering the nature of this being a single family home and the work and the,
I think we need more professional members in the meeting.
I guess my inclination would just say like that we would have a condition to prohibit the use of invasive landscape plants in the future, which is like kind of covered by state rules otherwise anyways. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jen, can you say that again? I don't know why, it's hard to hear you.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
It's on purpose. No, I was going to say was we could but my inclination would be just to maintain a prohibition on the use of invasive landscape plants in buffer zones, which is pretty much like in line with state rules anyways. But, it sounds like we're going to be like looking at this a little bit next week.
It's true, Terry, if we need to get clarification on the language, at least for item 16, or it's for the as-built requirement, it sounds like this is going to get continued anyways. We can obviously keep discussing all these other items.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, for him to be in compliance, he needs to be able to comfortably record this. In terms of the invasives, I mean, my experience is, oftentimes we will offer removal of invasives. It's, as part of a remediation or something like that. This site doesn't have a huge amount to start with in this area. But, I'm sure there's some here and there. But that wasn't something we talked about. yeah, if you folks need to, think about it and get Melissa's input on it, that's fine. And we can go from there.
I think I would like to do that.
Yeah, like I said, definitely, one of the biggest ones is the as-built. That's the one that there's the most questions about. So I have to do a little more research anyways, I think, for that to the next meeting. I obviously can't do it right now. So, yeah, it's up to you guys, but if you're okay with that, Terry, maybe that makes most sense.
Yeah, I guess, the question is do you want to make single family homes be doing as-builts, or is that something that should be more for commercial, larger developments? That's your call. So.
Yep, well, let's see what we did for other single family houses.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll just wait and can finalize the discussion next meeting.
Sure, that'd be June 28th.
Yep, and we don't need to make a motion or anything. This is just part of under the compliance updates right now. So we don't have to a motion to continue or anything like that. But I just want to say, Terry, I appreciate your patience in this process, and Mr. Chickwins. I get how this is. It's confusing and it's a lot, and there's parts in here that we didn't discuss at the hearing. So
yeah, well,
I get it.
Yeah, for somebody like him to get 60 some odd conditions, when we talked about 4 in the meeting, was pretty overwhelming. So understandably, it's a lot. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Okay. What else? Let's see.
We've been having 3 hours of fun so far, so.
I'm still having fun.
Okay, we have a bunch of, I don't have any other updates for any other items. Those are the only ones, ongoing projects and open space and everything like that. We have a lot of minutes to approve. And I believe
we probably don't have the right people for most of them.
Very possible. Potentially April 4th, because we were just waiting for Michael, I thought, for that one.
24th?
Excuse me, April 24th. But maybe we don't have enough people.
You're waiting for me?
Yeah, because that was that meeting that we similarly didn't have Julie or Melissa was there. So we needed all the people. We just had quorum, so we needed everyone who was there. But I mean, if you guys want, we can just wait. If you want to wait.
Let's skip it. Yeah, let's just skip it for now.
Okay, cool. Okay, one that we really can't.
I think we can approve that one, right?
I mean, in the interest of time, maybe it's easiest just to wait either way.
Just skip it for now.
As long as you can definitely be at the next meeting, Mike. All right. Okay, so the next item, this one I'd rather not skip, 99 Hendrick Street boundary resolution review. This does have a request for a vote. Essentially what this is that there, and if you're familiar with 99 Hendrick Street, we all recently issued a certificate of compliance for a bridge / crossing that was associated with Mr. Daniel Daigle. That was issued, that's fine. There is a situation where the city has been using essentially like an easement, my understanding, for utility lines, but that was never officially defined as an easement, on the books. And so the city is pursuing resolving that and wants to establish it as an official easement, but the property is listed as being managed by the Conservation Commission. And so they need permission from the commission for the city attorney to pursue making this easement official. And so none of the boundaries are changing. Nothing is really changing at all, except that they're making it all official. And so let's see, there's like an official vote they want that the city attorney requested would be made. Let me pull that up. And there's all kinds of exhibits and things. You can look at them if you like, the maps and whatever. But essentially, they've also communicated with DPW, and DPW feels good about this and thinks this is the right way to go. Let me share my screen. And so the request is for the commission to make this here vote to authorize the city council and the mayor of the city of Easthampton to negotiate to enter into a boundary line agreement in a form of substantially similar to the document attached here to Daigle Exhibit page 1 through 5 of 16. And this is for the city council's resolution that they're going to do later. But does that like make sense? Do you guys have any other questions? I have more things I can show you and try to make it make more sense. But does it make sense otherwise?
Should we wait until other people approve first?
I mean, technically we have quorum, so you don't have to. It's up to you guys.
Or the mayor and the lawyer?
Oh, they approve. No, this is given to me by the city attorney.
Okay.
He created this and is working in tandem with the mayor and the rest of the DPW and the rest of the city council. But administratively, the commission needs to vote to give them permission to carry forward.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
I don't understand. So we own some single family resident driveway and the city needs an easement over it or something?
Here, I'll explain it how it was explained to me. So,
do we have a property plan or something?
Yep, I can show you that here in a second. Let me just explain it this way. So this is from Michael Pill. And basically said, please review the attached draft boundary line agreement. Plans cited also are attached for reference. Please note that both the 2013 and 2020 plans for Northeast Survey Consultants show the proposed but never implemented municipal sewer easement across Daniel Daigle's land described as follows: a 30-foot wide sewer easement benefiting the city of Easthampton. No easement of record found in the registry. So as far as I know, there is no grant of easement recorded in the registry of deeds. My client, Daniel Daigle, has informed me that he will agree as part of this boundary line agreement to sign off and agree to the city sewer easement on the front of the property line, which crosses his driveway near the bridge. He notes that this sewer easement was never agreed to either by him or his predecessor in title, and no compensation was ever received for this. Apparently, the city simply entered onto his land and built the sewer line shown on the attached plans, all without permission, without taking an easement, and without paying any compensation. Please let me know your thoughts on how to resolve this issue. If it is to be resolved as part of the boundary line agreement, then I believe the bounds of the easement need to be set forth. Meets and bounds. Okay, so all that stuff. And then where's the one that I want?
Were you sharing something, Cassie?
Yeah, I'm sharing that like document with the vote, but I'll share something else. I'll share these final exhibits, maybe. I guess this is the best one I can share. Let's see. So like this is the overall area. So said to be City of Easthampton, no deed bound. Let's see, 30-foot wide sewer easement. This is a detail of it. And then I'm gonna find one more thing. The city attorney explained it well. He said,
is there a conservation restriction on this property? I just don't understand what our role is.
yeah, I don't know. He said that we were just asking that the acceptance of the survey that Daigle had done as correct and clear at the boundary. That's what this is all trying to do. As the land is shown as belonging to the Conservation Commission, I would need their authority to allow the mayor to enter into the boundary line agreement. It would, and then the vote language that I showed you. So some part of it is owned by the commission, probably somewhere in the somewhere. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that he's incorrect.
So, wait, which property? 170, this big one.
What? I honestly, I don't know. We can, I can call the attorney. He gave me his number, and I can get him in here if you want. And we can do it that way.
Which property is it?
99 Hendrick Street.
99. On the map, where is it?
Here? It's this little like leg. This is the area in question.
Okay.
Maybe it's because there's this chunk that's involved in this property.
Yeah. And what was the ask? I didn't get why they were asking the Conservation Commission for anything. So
the city is seeking permission to allow the mayor to put in officially on the books this sewer easement. And apparently the land or part of it, part of the parcels in question is owned by the Conservation Commission. And so the commission has to give permission for them to put in this easement officially on the books. The easement is already, I mean, the utilities and things are already there. It's just not squared away. I mean, like I said, I can definitely reach out to the attorney now. He gave me his number and was like, yeah, let me know. If you guys have questions, he might be able to explain it better than I am. And I apologize. It's a little out of my...
I'll leave it up to Jay and Dan.
I don't have a problem with it if it's conservation land and we just want to
conservation land though. That's like the owner's listed as Daniel Daigle. So like,
oh, we must have some kind of restriction on it or something.
Yeah, that would seem to me. I don't know. I like to know. I like to understand things.
Okay. So, yeah, I can reach out to the attorney and try to see if I can get him to hop on. Let's see. I know it's late. I don't know. We'll see if he responds.
Is there urgent need, or can we postpone it?
It's hard to say. It kind of seemed like they were trying to move along with this. I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world if it gets continued, but it did seem like they were trying to move along. So we have two other general business items, and you can see if he responds in time. So we can kind of like pause this, and I'll see if he can jump on before we finish these two other items.
Okay.
Okay. So hold on. Let me just do that real quick. So the two other items is going to be ratifying in order of conditions, but let me just do this real quick. Okay. Okay. So the two emergency certifications to be ratified. First is for the Glendale Street Bridge, which we talked about at the last meeting, and where that conversation left off was that the commission was unsure, how to advise them to proceed because there was a question of that the Manhan River, inside the riverbed where they were wanting to put in this scaffolding temporarily so that they could apply this splice plate to the bridge to secure it also temporarily until there's a larger fix. the riverbed itself is considered priority habitat by National Heritage. And so the recommendation to the city DPW was to reach out to National Heritage and see what they would want in terms of required documentation. And it's a hazard. The bridge had been determined to be in poor condition by Mass DOT, saying that the structure, needed to be repaired. And what they heard back from National Heritage was that they gave them essentially their equivalent of an emergency certification.
Right.
Is shown here. So that gave them a month to complete the work from June 15th to July 14th. And so it seemed like since it was deemed an emergency by National Heritage, it seemed appropriate, and I've communicated with the chair about this, it seemed appropriate to also issue an emergency certification so that they could remain in compliance with this this marker here, that timeline. Also to the, it was deemed poor condition by Mass DOT, and they, the work itself of just erecting the temporary scaffolding seemed pretty minimal in terms of impacts. So basically the work that I allowed was the construction of a temporary scaffolding in the Manhattan River by hand, and installation of temporary the installation of the temporary splice plate on the bridge. Ground disturbance to river bottom shall be avoided as much as is feasible to complete the work. No material from the bridge or construction process shall be allowed to enter the river and shall be caught by a tarp or other means. No equipment shall enter the river, and all refueling shall be completed outside of the wetland resource area. So it's up to you guys if you want to ratify this or not, and then.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call. Commissioner Cody, absent with notice. Commissioner Busa, absent with notice. Commissioner Buttrick.
Yes. Affirmative.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan, aye. Commissioner August.
Aye.
And Commissioner Teffer, absent with notice. The emergency cert is ratified.
Great. So the other one was for, sorry, I just got a response from the city attorney. The other one was for the culvert blockage at Whitebrook, kind of in the same area where that dredging project was going on. And the culvert was blocked. And there was a question of whether or not that blockage was from some material from the dredging project.
I doubt it, yeah.
And it wasn't. So I issued an emergency certification very similar to when we do beaver dam blockages, basically asking for as slow and controlled removal. And let me see, I can show it to you. And yeah, when they did it, the work has been done and completed. They did it as slow as they could. So
we just have to ratify the cert. Is that what we're doing?
Yep, same thing. So yeah. I don't know if you want any other information. Basically, these are what we basically do for all the other beaver dam things.
Okay.
Remove the blockage, put the material up in an upland location, no murders, equipment in the water, slow and controlled manner.
Does somebody want to make that motion to ratify the emergency certification?
Second.
All right, roll call. Commissioner Cody, absent with notice. Commissioner Busa, absent with notice. Commissioner Buttrick. Did I hear him?
Aye.
Barely. Okay. Commissioner Whittemore.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan, aye. Commissioner August.
Aye.
Commissioner Teffer, absent with notice.
Okay, thank you for doing that. So Mark was kind enough to join us. Thank you for hopping on. We can go back to 99 Hendrick Street. The big question mark is how, it just seems unclear what part is owned by the commission and how it's owned by the commission.
Yeah, so it was really more, can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yes.
It was really more out of just an abundance of caution. If you look at the plan that was hopefully provided to you as part of your packet, they had previously had a survey done, and the survey showed the land of Easthampton as belonging to the Conservation Commission. We haven't done any of the back title to it to confirm that. But ultimately, it would be the city council who would make the conveyance in any event. And I'm looking at this, I apologize, on my phone, so I can't see very well, but.
As we've been talking in the last couple items, I've been looking through the information. So we're not actually voting to grant the easement. We're voting to confirm the boundary line opinion. So that
yeah, so what you're voting to do is to authorize the mayor to enter into a boundary line agreement, which confirms the existing boundaries.
Okay, that makes a lot more. That makes a lot of sense. All right.
So I can pull up again that vote language.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions now since he's here?
That makes a lot of sense. Yes.
And then just so you guys are aware, what will happen is, assuming that you approve it, it would then go to the city council, and they would then go through basically the same process you're going through to authorize the mayor to actually enter into the agreement.
Okay. So would you like, we hardly ever do these formal things. Should we read the resolution in the minutes as part of our motion, or?
Yeah, that would be the preferable way to do it.
Yeah. All right. I've actually never done this before, so I guess. I guess I would like to make a motion, whereas a motion or a resolution to enter into a boundary line agreement with Daniel Daigle, whereas the city of Easthampton owns certain real property identified on page 2 of 6 of the Daigle exhibits attached and provided to the commission and incorporated herein, known as city property, I think. And then whereas Daniel Daigle, the owner of certain real property identified at page 2 of 6 of the Daigle exhibits attached here and incorporated herein, Daigle property, wishes to establish the boundaries of the Daigle property and the city property by entering into a boundary line agreement. And whereas the Conservation Commission has determined it is in the best interest of the city to enter into the boundary line agreement as detailed on pages 1 through 5 of 16 of the Daigle exhibits, and that doing so will not adversely affect will not adversely affect any over which has jurisdiction. Whereas it is in the reasonable belief of the Conservation Commission that the proposed boundary line agreement does not create any new boundaries, but simply reaffirms the existing boundaries. And whereas the mayor of the city be authorized as necessary to enter into a boundary line agreement and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary on behalf of the city to effectuate such agreements. Now, therefore, be it resolved, number 1, the mayor of the city is authorized as necessary to enter into the agreements and execute any and all instruments relative or necessary to effectuate such agreements. And 2, that this resolution shall take effect upon passage.
Second.
All right, roll call votes. Commissioner Cody, absent with notice. Commissioner Busa, absent with notice. Commissioner Buttrick.
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan, aye. And Commissioner August.
Aye.
And Commissioner Teffer, absent with notice. All right, motion carries.
Dan, that was the longest one I've ever heard.
Yeah, I'm not sure I read the part that I read.
Thank you for your help, Mark. I know that was...
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, the last thing, if you can stand it, which I realize under these circumstances to ask you to do this is probably not ideal, but there's a request to form a working solar group or working group to develop a solar ordinance. Julie reached out and said she's probably interested. So if we just want to have one, that might be fine. If there's another person.
I'd love to join.
All right, cool. So I don't know exactly what the time commitment is yet. If anyone else wants to join, obviously we could have more than two. But yeah, so basically we're looking at ideally what they're shooting for is once every other week. They're going to try to work through this quick. I don't know what the specific day of the meetings will be, but it would be in the afternoons after 5 p.m. for sure. They're waiting to get everyone to complete like a doodle poll to figure out when they want to have it exactly. And then they want to have it really, really close to done by August. So they're, the commitment for anybody who comes is just going to be coming to the meeting and participating in the discussion and helping figure it out. A lot of the administrative stuff, my understanding, is going to be done by me and Curtis Lehman, who is assistant planner, and then also probably Jamie Webb, who's also an assistant planner. So we're trying to do the groundwork, the actual writing of the thing, but you guys would be there reviewing it and adding comments and helping us with crafting, making sure the content actually makes sense. So the hope was to get a concert there. The committee is also going to be made up of people from the Energy Commission as well as City Council. And so the hope was to have the commission be represented by at least 1 or 2 members, including myself. So okay. If there's anybody else who wants to join on, we got Julie, I think. She said she was really interested. And then Michael, if you want to, that's great. Appreciate that. If that sounds like a reasonable time commitment for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Anybody else?
Kind of like to, but I don't think I can commit to it.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. You're saying you don't have time, I'm assuming, though.
I would love to, but I don't think I have time these days.
Right. Yeah, you all do so much already. I really appreciate it. So I know it's a lot to ask. And I will still, we'll be bringing in, I'll come bring updates and keep you all involved. You'll have the opportunities to add comments still. So.
Y'all probably didn't hear me read that resolution either. You just didn't.
Oh, we did. I heard it. That one worked.
I wasn't sure if I was supposed to read that part or if it's at the bottom where it says Conservation Commission vote, which I didn't read.
Right. Well, this is brand new for me. So that's what I thought. You just had to do the bottom part. But once he was here, it seemed like he said he wanted you to read the whole resolution. So better safe than sorry, I guess.
All good. So what's our next meeting? A live meeting or?
I don't know.
Okay, don't know.
I don't know. Hopefully, Charlie Baker could put it through tomorrow, and then he was just late by a day or something. But then if they don't, the city wants to probably do hybrid, but we haven't worked out the details of that yet. I don't remember that other conversation we had at a previous meeting. It's a lot of technological questions of how to accommodate that. But I think it would be prudent for you all to prepare yourself psychologically for coming back in.
Not a problem.
Okay. I'll keep you posted. As soon as I know stuff, I'll let you know.
I haven't left the house in a couple of years, so it might be nice to actually leave.
Yep. It's a good silver lining aspect.
We'll be less comfortable, so maybe meetings won't go as long.
I might have to get my hair cut.
Which one?
If anyone thinks of questions about it, just feel free to email me.
Okay, no problem. I just figured there'd be someone will have a meeting before us,
I know. Yeah, we kind of timed it perfectly. We gave ourselves the absolute longest chunk that we could have in between meetings. So by having ours tonight, so.
Right before we came on, there's an email from MACC saying that it's on his desk. So whether or not he signs it or changes it. So you'll hear Cassie, I'm sure.
We'll probably hear tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds promising.
Yeah.
And I apologize for the last meeting. I had my second shot, so I was kind of very sick and didn't wake up for a couple of days.
That's too bad.
Fair enough.
Speaking of the next meeting, I have to go to a town of Ashfield select board meeting next Monday, or in 2 Mondays. No, it's next Monday. Oh, never mind. No conflict.
Cool.
And if the next meeting agenda looks as long as this, I'm going to the town of Asheville also.
Second.
I don't know. Yeah, it's been crazy. I don't know. I couldn't tell you why. I hopefully it won't be as long. I mean, as far as I know, we just have Lathrop. That's just
all right. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
All right. Well, good night, everybody.
Night. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.